So that was actually a very encouraging comment to hear in that backdrop. And also, Mr. Zuhair, now going back to the political aspects that are being discussed now. We know that His Excellency President Mahinda Rajapaksa's manifesto and also the retired general's manifesto is now out and it's available for the public. So in terms of the stability, in a viewpoint from a stability of the government that will also help the business community and the process of development, what can you comment on the two manifestos, Mr. Zuhair?
In fact, you have raised a very important question, because stability and political stability is very vital for economic progress and economic development. It is very important that we make certain that the country has a stable political atmosphere to encourage investors, to encourage local investors as well as foreign investors to come develop this country, and also to ensure that the government fully concentrates on its priority area, namely economic development. For that, political stability is very vital. Before I come to the manifesto itself, I would like to refer to the fact that JVP, together with the UNP, are important partners in the opposition's campaign for Mr. Saras Fronteca, the retired general. Now, as you will see, the UNP is extreme right, and the JVP is extreme left, two poles apart when it comes to basically economic policies. Now, if you take business environment, now we need an environment where there are no strikes, no go-slows, no problems of that nature in the country whatsoever, so that there is a peaceful atmosphere. Of course, legitimate needs of the working class have to be met, but then I'm not referring to the fact that we need to stop or do not permit any such demands whatsoever. But reasonable atmosphere has to be created for investment, for development. For that, there has to be absolute political stability. Now, with the JVP around, I am sure the business community will think very, very carefully whether they will be able to ensure stability in the country when it comes to the economy with a party like the JVP, knowing well its background and its generally, I mean, preference to create and survive on issues of demand, which sometimes are considered extremely unrealistic from the point of view of any sensible government to grant. So you may have situations where there are many confrontations that can emerge, but the basic problem there is because there is absolutely no agreement between the UNP and the JVP on any matter other than the abolition of the executive presidency. That's the only issue they are agreed upon. So if you come to the manifesto itself, the manifesto of Mr. Saras Fonseca is clear on one point. He is very clear that he will be abolishing the executive presidency once he comes to power. Now, if the executive presidency is abolished, without amending the present PR system or without bringing in changes to the electoral process, and only you are dealing with the executive presidency and abolish that, Parliament will become, the government in majority in Parliament will be destabilized. In fact, today the stability of the government is maintained because of the executive presidency. Now, because of the executive presidency, the lack of majority in Parliament and the need to depend on other smaller parties to form a majority in Parliament has been overcome. But without the executive presidency, within Parliament structure alone, you will find a terrible situation where small parties are able to dictate to the major parties, which will destabilize the government, which will create chaos, and government will have to concentrate on how to save its budget from being defeated, how to ensure legislation is passed, and that is one of the reasons why you have to sometimes encourage and receive crossovers. Not only that, even if you have a large cabinet, it is precisely because you don't have a majority And to ensure majority, you have to satisfy all political groups. So it will create a situation where the government has to spend tremendous amount of money on having a huge cabinet of unwieldy in size, unable to take decisions, unable to go forward with economic development, and where the president or whoever is the chief, the prime minister, will have to keep on watching every day whether anybody is crossing over from your side to the other side, whether the government will collapse the next day. Now, we have seen this over and over again. So this type of destabilization is dangerous for economic stability. Now, you will find, as far as the manifesto of the President, Mr. Mahinda Rajapaksa, he is not talking of the abolition of the executive presidency. He says, I will make the executive presidency accountable to the judiciary. At the moment, they are responsible to Parliament. So if that has to be made more effective, the President would be ready to make further amendments. But when it comes to the judiciary, at the moment the President cannot be sued as President except with regard to the subjects and functions which the President has retained for himself, like the Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defense. He can be sued as Minister of Defense. He may be President, but he can be sued as Minister of Defense or Minister of Finance. But as a President, you cannot. So the manifesto promises to make the presidency accountable to the judiciary as well. Now, apart from the advantages and disadvantages of that, which I don't propose to discuss, the point that I wish to urge is that if you look more carefully, the President's manifesto also goes to the extent of saying the PR system will be amended in order to make it enable any government which is elected to power to have a majority of seats in Parliament. Now, that is possible in the light of the Select Committee on Constitutional Reforms, which has brought in a recommendation that you have the first past the post system of the old first past the post system plus a reasonable extent of PR, not absolute PR that we have, which alone will give any ruling party, it can be the opposition, the government, a reasonably good majority to rule the country. Now, that is absolutely important for political stability, also for economic development. I'm sure the business community will have to watch extremely carefully as to how the scenario is evolving. If you elect the opposition, there would be a tremendous instability that will be automatically created, not only by the presence of the JVP, but also the fact there is a promise which, if it can be implemented, I have certain doubts about the possibility of implementation, but we have to go on the basis that the opposition candidate has promised. If assuming that he wins, which is very unlikely in the situation for which I can give further details if necessary, but let us assume he wins, it will lead to this total destabilization of the political scene in the country, because Parliament will become, as you know, under the PR system, you cannot get a majority in Parliament. Almost all governments have been minority governments formed on the basis of coalitions with all other parties. So from the economic perspective, that is going to create tremendous amount of problem unless the PR system is also amended, which the President has promised to do.
Okay, we are speaking to Mr. M.M.Zuhair, and we will take a small break and we'll be back with you. Stay with us.
On the gate. Yeah, just go on. Give me one with a new string.
Hey, Zubik, you better stop eating on me.
We're not singing green songs with tequila.